Hi, I'm Pat Cavanaugh. I'm the General Manager of the Covington News. We'd like to thank you for tuning us in today. I have Gabe Cooley, who is the editor of the Covington News, and we have our special guest, Philip Bradford, who's running for sheriff of Newton County, and if elected will also be one of our constitutional officers. We realize at the Covington News that this is a very, very important election for all of us here in Newton County. We have new industry coming in. We think the major concern, and it seems the major concern of our readers, is the safety of our county. So we're pleased to have Ms. Bradford here today. So Gabe, I'm going to turn this over to you if you want to start the question, and we'll just ask Philip a few questions that some of you have sent in to us, some that we had concerns with, some that he has talked about before, and then we'll have a few questions from his opponent, Sheriff Philip Brown, and then we'll end it for the day. So, Gabe, take it away.
Philip, why don't we just start with something very basic. Give us your opening statement, why you're running for sheriff, and just kind of what you're looking forward to.
First of all, let me say thank you for this opportunity to have this discussion and bring forth both of our views on this office. I think it's very important. So thank you for the opportunity. The question was, why am I running for sheriff?
Yes.
Well, I've been in law enforcement here in Newton County at the Covington Police Department. I've been employed for next month will be 27 years. I'm very passionate about law enforcement in our community. I feel that we're not getting the quality law enforcement that we pay for and expect as citizens of Newton County. And I do see the inside workings of the sheriff's office as having worked as a East Metro Drug Enforcement Commander and worked side by side with Newton County as they're on that team as well. Been deputized all the way back to Joe Nichols when he was the sheriff and working investigations and stuff. So I've seen the inside workings and just not pleased with it, and I think that I can do something about it.
Sure. Quick follow-up to that. Obviously, you've worked your way up through the Covington Police Department. One of the questions that we've kind of heard from the community, and just as a basic follow-up, as opposed to just seeking to move up further in the city police department, why are you seeking county sheriff, as opposed to, again, just moving up through the city ranks further?
I feel that the Covington Police Department has cutting-edge law enforcement. We're nationally accredited, internationally accredited. Our command staff, our guys, professional through and through. But what I see with the Newton County Sheriff's Department just doesn't reach those standards. And I think that I, as a candidate for sheriff in Newton County, could bring that to Newton County. They just got state certified, and that's good. That's a good move. Sheriff Brown has worked probably almost 3 years now trying to become state certified. That's like they have to meet 120 so standards, as opposed to accreditation like the Covington Police Department has. We have 480 standards. I have lived my law enforcement life the last 27 years by 480 standards. They have just became accredited. They haven't even began to live the life of an accredited agency. So they still, even though they achieved it, they haven't began to live it. And what I feel that I would bring to that agency is a lifetime of 480 standards and true excellence in law enforcement.
Fair enough.
Philip, one of the obviously in law enforcement is a major factor in the thoughts of the voters of Newton County, I believe. And we're all concerned that we're protected. And we'll have some questions on dealing with that. But the number one thing is, at what cost is it going to really cost the taxpayers in this county to be protected like we would? Now, I have a two-part question for you. First is, tell us a little bit about your experience on operating a major budget that's involved with the Sheriff's Department, which is pretty independent, or is independent, Gabe, if I'm right, even though it's part of the county budget, it's still pretty much independently run and operated by the sheriff. So if you'll tell us a little bit about what your experience is on running and operating a budget like that first. That's my first question.
Well, I've dealt with budgets throughout my supervisory career, and more so in the last, say, 7 or 8 years. As commander of the East Metro Drug Enforcement Team, our budget was much smaller than Newton County Sheriff's Department's budget. They have a large budget, $19 million plus budget, and that's in 2 separate phases. It's like $9 million. The jail has its own budget, and the patrol side has its own budget. And true, that is a large budget. But when you look at budgets, just as a whole, you have your basic fundamentals of budgeting. Most of your budget, a large portion of your budget, is payroll, and the everything that comes with the insurance and the so really you're only looking at a smaller portion of what you actually have to manage and spend. I have no the county commissioners, they set what the payroll is going to be, and the monies, and handle all the insurance side of it. So I can't go in there and fool with that. Maybe give somebody a small raise or something, but you have no control over that side of it. But the small part I do manage, that is what's important. That's what I feel is getting mismanaged by the current administration, by Sheriff Ezell Brown. And so what I've done through MDET, through East Metro Drug Enforcement Team, when I first went over there, the budget was much higher. The drug funds got cut over years, and our budget dropped, eventually cutting the grant because of Homeland Security. But I've managed that budget, and then even so now, we as captains of the Covington Police Department, which is what I want to bring to Newton County Sheriff's Department, we as captains, we monitor and manage our budgets for our divisions. I know ahead of time what monies I have left to carry me through to the end of the year. I know not to overspend. If I need new uniforms, if I need some equipment, if I need a tool, I know right away if I have the money in the budget to purchase that piece of equipment or that uniform. And it's kind of like prorating, or looking at your budget year long. Don't just go haphazardly out and spend, which I feel like is some of the things that's happening now with the budget, with the current budget, with the Newton County Sheriff's Office.
The second part of this question on the budget, and thank you for that answer, but you have in previous forums and in talking with us, which is a known fact, that the sheriff is over his budget and the budget that he can control. And your figure seems to be higher than the sheriff's figure, but it's still over. It really doesn't make any difference. You're over, okay, as far as any business is concerned. What do you think, first of all, on accountability, do you think there's good accountability on why, number one? And second, what do you see on the part that you can control other than the jail? And I don't know what can be controlled there, but on the patrolmen in the street, our protection for our folks, cars, et cetera, everything else that you control, what thoughts would you have if you get elected that you can bring that budget, whether it's $1 million or $600,000 in the hole, back down to at least zero balance or pretty close?
That's a broad question. What I would say is management of human resources and the management of, items purchased and, that side of the budget. Let's start with the management of human resources. I said a while ago, I couldn't do a whole lot about, what the salary is of that deputy and his benefits and insurance and all that goes along with that. What we could do is cut down on overtime. Now, the jail is super short-staffed, and I talked about management of human resources. I know that there's a lot of part-time positions that the sheriff has allocated to his budget, and he just lets, the positions he hires, he has some clerical staff as part-time employees, which is allocated as a deputy, a part-time deputy. He has those clerical staff in those positions. He has some part-time deputies that he puts out on the street. I know that he lost like 23, 25 deputies in the jail. The jail is suffering greatly, and they're paying a lot of overtime in the jail. And they're getting deputies off the road to come and work extra duty, and it allows them to make some extra monies. But what I would do is try to manage those resources, those human resources, and take some of those part-time positions and say, you come in on Friday and Saturday night and you work the jail and bookend, and let's help those guys out. Let's look at our overall assignments and say, where could we shift people? When he took those 23, 25 people from the jail, they didn't get anybody back. And they're suffering. And it's really unsafe conditions.
Okay, why didn't we replace those people? Why do you think?
Well, the overall budget of the county didn't allow, they
Okay.
cut positions. And the sheriff, and this is where I feel that I have the greatest potential. I'm a problem solver. The sheriff, they cut positions. He's like, well, we cut positions. We got to do what we were doing with what we have now. Well, I would say, well, let's look at this over here, and can we shift some people over here? And can I take some of these part-time positions and put them in here in our peak hours of business, like on court days when a lot of people are being transferred over from court, and on weekend hours when everybody's having a good time and kind of gets carried away and you get arrested, or they're bringing the intoxicated people in. Let's build that staff up at that time with part-time people. That's just one instance, but there's many instances. We can look at the whole organization and do that. That's one thing that one of my goals when I first come in, I want to do an audit, if you will, of every division. What's our manpower? But I want to take the people that we have there now to help me with this, and let's all look at it collectively to say, what could we do better, and how could we shift some things around, get a better production out of what we currently have. And then, of course, we'd love to go to the commissioners and say, hey, we need more people, we need more money. And I would constantly fight that fight. But I said it in one of the previous forums, and I'll say it again, we can only spend what our tax digest brings in. And if we don't have it, we can't spend it. And, which is maybe something that Sheriff Brown don't quite understand and grasp yet.
Okay.
Fair enough. A quick follow-up to that. So all that being said, Philip, on the budget, do you believe then that you could either A, keep it in line, or B, be very close to it? Is that kind of the bottom line what you're saying there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
One of the things, a couple quick points here. You obviously have field experience in multiple areas. I know that you have some administrative experience moving up the ranks. But take us through, as an administrator, obviously the sheriff, you're going to be administrating over several areas. You're in charge of the jail, in charge of law enforcement, school resource officers. Why should we trust you as an administrator? What experience do you have that makes you capable to handle that?
My entire supervision, and let me clarify supervision career. When I was promoted as a supervisor at the Covington Police Department, I think it was 1992, I became a sergeant. From that day to current day today, I have supervised people. You say, okay, that sounds elementary. Whereas, if you look back at Sheriff Brown, let's look back prior to being sheriff of Newton County. Prior to that, Sheriff Brown, he says in some of his, I have some of his handouts he puts out in the community. He says that he was promoted back in 1979. My dad was a Newton County deputy. And I know for a fact, I remember stories way back from when I was younger, when I would go to the sheriff's office and we would spend the night in the sheriff's office. They had a bedroom in there, and the deputy on the night shift was the only deputy out. And I'm talking mid-70s, okay? There would only be 2 deputies on patrol in the evening times. You know, you never had a large number of deputies. If they needed anything, the city would come out and help them, or other counties would come if anything got big. So from the time Ezell Brown was a supervisor, all through his ranks, he never supervised anyone. If anybody, it was one person. Whereas through my, you know, of course, we're grown now. We've grown in number. And, you know, I would have 5 men, 8 men, sometimes 15 men throughout my tenure as a supervisor. Lieutenant on Viper unit, then commander at East Metro Drug Enforcement Team, had numerous people. When Sheriff Ezell Brown, he was made detective. He says he made detective, I think it was in like 1982. He was promoted to supervisor in like 79, 82, he made detective. As a detective at Newton County Sheriff's Office, even at my division, you pretty much work alone. You get your cases assigned, you have a responsibility to go out and try to solve your case. And so throughout his entire career, as he was a detective from 1982 or 3 to the time he won the election as sheriff of Newton County. Throughout that whole entire time, there was nobody he supervised. So, and I think that shows today, like he's never managed people and knows how, and deals with people, and looks at issues and things that's going, you know, if something's happening in an employee's life, you say, or if something's happening at work with an employee, you look and say, well, why is he doing these things? It's not typical of him. What's going on in his life right now? And, you know, you got to take all these things into consideration. I have led people my entire supervision career. And so I think that that's a big plus for me in getting this job.
Well, Captain, why don't we explain a little bit, and why don't you explain in a little bit more detail exactly what you do with the Covington Police Force and what you're involved with, and maybe how you started a little bit and what you're in charge of now, because
Okay.
some of it is kind of, we're not, on what you do is not all public record things. So what is it that you do so people understand that?
What is it I do now or have done?
Well, what have you done, and in the position you are now, exactly what it is? Okay.
I would say, you know, I was a sergeant and I was over some street guys early in my career, early 90s up to about 95. Then I went to a drug unit in Atlanta where I was just by myself, or you know, I didn't supervise people. I was just part of a team. In 98, when I came back, we started Viper, and
Which means?
it was a specialized unit that was a grant, and Viper stood for Variable Intensive Patrol Enforcement and Response. And it basically, we was a grant that worked high crime areas. And so 4 of us went out, and so basically I oversaw 4 people. And then in 2005, I did that from 98 to 2005. Then in 2005, when I came on as East Metro Drug Enforcement Commander, we probably had 10 or 12 people at that time with office personnel, and National Guard was part of it. And it was a lot bigger then, 3 counties. And that's when our budget was probably at its biggest, and I would say it was probably around $300,000 at that time. But managing those people and leading those people into cases where we had more cases, our numbers was bigger than ever through the history of East Metro Drug Enforcement Team. The quality of cases. I went out and sought for the top of the line equipment. We bought digital cameras, undercover cameras. The DA's office loved us. We were bringing cases, all on video, things that had never been done before. And that's cutting edge technology, and that's what I do. And so I brought the best to the table, the highest numbers, quality cases, and so that's how I lead. And I did that up until 2011 when I was promoted to captain. I was a lieutenant through all that time. Promoted to captain, then put over criminal investigation division for the Covington Police Department. Once placed there, I probably have, I have 8 detectives, 3 more assigned to narcotics, have evidence, probably 14, 15 people, something like that I manage now and lead now. And so that's my experience as a leader / supervisor.
Okay. Do you think we're effectively, just one follow-up on this, do you think we're effectively using the technology that we have available to us now in the county? I mean, technology seems to be an important part of what you feel is important in police work. Do you think we're effectively, first of all, do we have the right equipment? And second, if we do, are we effectively using it?
I would say no.
On the equipment, that we don't have the right equipment, or we're effective? Okay.
Let's look at a broader
Okay.
spectrum. We're talking about Newton County Sheriff's Office, right?
Yes, correct.
There are grants out there, and I know that the sheriff has obtained some grants, and I don't know what all of them are. He's obtained, I think maybe 4 or 5 grants since he's been in there, and that's good. But the grants we need to target are grants, our deputies. I only know of maybe 2 or 3 cars that have a camera in the car. Every Covington Police Department vehicle, every patrol vehicle has a camera in the car. And it's cutting edge technology. You drive into the parking lot and it automatically starts downloading from the car. We don't have to take anything out, plug it in. It's tamper proof for the officer. And these help the officers in complaints, and it helps us in dealing with citizens' complaints and going back reviewing, things that truly happened on a traffic stop. But so looking in a broader spectrum in patrol, how could we get more cameras in those cars? Are there grants out there? Are we seeking the things that would better the patrol division? Then on the drug side of it, enforcement of drugs, the drug enforcement has just dropped dramatically, over the past couple of years in Newton County. I hate to say this in a public setting like this, but it's not getting done. It's not getting done. There are no proactive patrols. If you think about this, I said it in the primary, before the primary and other forums. Think about how many times you ride down the street, how many times you ride down a county road do you see a county deputy with a car pulled over on the side of the road? How many times do you see that? You don't see it. You don't see Newton County deputies conducting traffic stops. But let me tell you this, crime moves in vehicles. And if, I would say a large part of the crime in America, but let's look at Newton County. Right here, a large part of our crime, I'd say as much as 80%. You can't measure it because there's so much crime that we don't catch. So we can't measure that. But a large part of our crime, I'd say 80%, is local crime. It's not the white collar stuff where people are taking your identity from, they're sitting over in, Beijing and stealing your identity through a computer. That's not local crime, and that does happen here in Newton County. But I'm talking about somebody coming to your house and stealing your lawnmower, somebody breaking in your car and ripping your radio out. That crime is driven by drugs. People are not stealing your lawnmower so they can go cut their grass. They're not stealing your lawnmower for that. They're stealing your lawnmower so they can go pawn it or sell it and buy drugs. They're stealing your radio out of your car so they can go pawn it or sell it and buy drugs. You know, I've worked narcotics most of a large portion of my career. When we bust these drug dealers, guess what we find in these houses? Stolen lawnmowers, stolen radios, stolen weapons. All this is what you find in these houses, and then they get more charges when you arrest them. That gun, that lawnmower, that radio, that weed eater, that chainsaw, it didn't get in that house. They didn't walk that thing from your house that was where you were a victim to that drug house. They drove that over there. And if we become more proactive in our traffic stops, in enforcing traffic laws, you run across that stuff. A large portion of the time, if somebody's got a stash of loot they just took from a house and then the blue lights come on behind them, do you know what they immediately think? He knows I just broke in this house. He knows I have this stuff in this car. So they got to run. They got to get away. They tell on themselves. But you know what? We're not cutting those lights on and making them tell on themselves. The sheriff said in one of the forums, he said, that's profiling. You say we should stop more cars. That's profiling. That's not profiling. That is him of his whole career working by himself and not being proactive. He don't know. He don't know. Stopping car, you know, GSP is all these cars. How many times you see a trooper with a car stopped on the side of the road? They're not profiling. Traffic stops are based on probable cause. It has to stand up in a court of law. When you put those blue lights on, you better have a good reason to cut them lights on, because you don't know what's going to happen past flipping that switch. You could walk up and be as small as, you know, hey, you know, cut your headlights on. You need to ride with your headlights on. Have a good day. It could be that small, or you could be in the fight of your life in a gunfight just right after flipping that switch. You better, as a law enforcement officer, a big responsibility falls on us. You better be ready, and you better have good probable cause when you flip that switch.
Now, Captain, can I jump in real quick? Now, does that go back to doing more traffic stops? Do we need more officers? Does that go back to training? Because if, you know, costs are always a concern. So are you saying that we have the resources right now, we're just not doing enough of those traffic stops?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you mentioned training was one of the things that you've mentioned.
That's correct.
As well as the war on drugs. But let's go to training real quick. So if you're speaking about a lack of training, is that the biggest need you see in terms of the patrol side? Or,
No.
Or what would you do there?
No, I'm gonna tell you something. We have some sharp people at that Newton County Sheriff's Office. You know, I've worked side by side with a lot of those guys, and they are some sharp guys over there. A lot of things can happen with what's called roll call training, where you go into briefing before a shift, and I could take a article or something, and we could talk about search and seizure, or we could talk about vehicle pullovers and probable cause and reasonable suspicion. We could talk about that in a 15, 20, 30-minute setting and increase their knowledge tremendously in 20 or 30 minutes. And say, you know what, guys, I want you to go out and try to stop 3 cars tonight. Try to stop 3 cars. And, you know, if it's somebody that just didn't use their blinker, or don't drive without their headlights on, something like that, and it's a good citizen, you know immediately when you walk up to a car as an officer, you know, we have this sixth sense, you know, the hair stands up on the back of your neck. You know when you have something that's not right, or everything's fine. You know, so just say, try to stop 3 cars tonight. Give them a warning. Give everybody gets warnings tonight. And let's just try to get out and be proactive. So I would say no, it doesn't take, what we have right now, it's not gonna take a lot of training. It's gonna take proactivity. Those supervisors saying, hey, let's get those guys out and let's get them to work. Let's push our people to be more proactive. Things I talked about training was in our schools. You know, our school resource officers. I looked into it deeper. I actually was wrong in what I said early in the primary. I looked up in the papers that I had, it showed 9 officers. There's actually 15. And of the 9, I saw 1 that was certified. Well, there's actually 15 school resource officers, and only 3 of them have been to school resource officer certification, which is very important. And I said it in the primary, you cannot deal with kids, children, the way that a law enforcement officer goes out and answers domestics every day. I can't treat those people like I treat a child, or I can't treat a child like I would treat those people. They don't rationale the same as an adult. They don't think that their processes are different. There are different laws in dealing with search and seizure for kids. On school property, there's different things you need to know. Well, only 3 of our school resource officers know that because 12 of them hadn't been to school.
Is that an expensive proposition, or, I mean, why would you think we wouldn't have every one of those ones dealing in school? I mean, we have issues dealing in our high schools right now that, you know, back in my age, you know, we didn't have police officers in our schools, and, you know, in the famous good old days, I'm not sure whether we need or not, I don't think we did, but, you know, now we have police officers in schools, and you would think we wouldn't be having all these fights and, you know, the drug that we don't even report on because there's so many of them, and, you know, or the issues, if they're true, you know, I mean, why? Why don't we have those trained? I mean, why wouldn't that be a necessary part of work in there?
I'm glad you asked that, Pat. Do you know what? You know what? That it's a 40-hour. It used to be an 80-hour, which is 2 weeks. Now it's 40 hours that you go and get this training, and there's a curriculum that it maps out everything you're going to get. For that officer to go to school for 40 hours, do you know what it costs Newton County?
I don't.
0. It costs absolutely nothing. The academy at Forsyth, the Public Safety Training Center in Forsyth, we go there. They offer all these courses. I mean, it's pages of courses you can turn and go through. They put out a calendar in January, and they put one out in July of all the courses that's going to be over the next 6 months. You can pick that course and put your name down, and once the class gets to 20 or 30, however many it is for the capacity of the class, then it's cut off. But if you can get your name on that list, it costs absolutely nothing. It costs the taxpayers of Newton County the gas and the salary for that week for that officer. All we have to do is cover the street, cover his position while he's in that school.
And you would make that a requirement if you're elected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It should be a requirement.
Let's jump to the questions. We offered Sheriff Brown the opportunity to ask 3 questions of you. We offered you the opportunity to ask 3 questions of Sheriff Brown. Let's jump to his questions. The first one he had, you have repeatedly mentioned that you plan to change the culture of the sheriff's office. What unique skills will you bring to change the culture there?
Let me begin by saying in changing the culture, I'm talking about the professionalism, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that I have versus what he brought 4 years ago. As I said, Ezell Brown, you know, he talks about his training in some of his brochures. I'm trying to think back to some of his training. You know, I think his big kind of what he hangs his hat on is some arson investigation. We're not having a whole lot of fires in Newton County, and we got arson investigators now through Newton County Fire that are trained to do those things. So I really don't know how that helps us a whole lot. So he's got all this arson training, but other than that, you know, he was on the SWAT team. I don't know what that does for the people a whole lot. trying to think of anything else he had. I really don't recall. And then he lists his sheriff's school, but that was after winning the election. But what I bring to the table is, my FBI National Academy training, my Public Safety Leadership Institute from Mercer training, keyword leadership, my training from Carl Vinson Institute through the University of Georgia in leadership. I remember back when Bob Moody was our chief. I don't know if y'all remember back that far or if you've been around that long, but Bob Moody used to be the chief of police in Covington. And he would always bring in a leadership book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The book by Don Shula, Everyone's a Coach. And we would read those books in our staff meetings. We would have to do 1 chapter a month. And you had to know that chapter, and he would ask questions and stuff. And man, I hated it at that time. But that was the best training, just right there in the department. I've read book after book after book under Bob Moody and Stacy Cotton. And now it's became a love. I enjoy reading management books and leadership books, books on leadership and getting new ideas. And so that's what I bring. That's the culture. That's how I would change the culture in the leadership. You know what I would do, Gabe? I would definitely say that I'm a leader. It's hard to do this and kind of toot your own horn and stuff, but I'm trying to get a job. I'm trying to sell myself and say that I'm better than this other person. Ezell Brown and I were good friends when this thing started, and I hope we're good friends when this is over. I have nothing bad to say about Ezell Brown as a person. He's a good person. I just think that I'm a better leader than he is. I think that my training and stuff I have more than what he has. And I'm going to bring something different to the table. You know what? I think that I'm a leader. I know that I'm a leader. But you know what I would strive to be is a leader of leaders. That sheriff's office has management staff, has people that oversee their divisions. I want to lead those people to lead their people. And that's what I strive to do. And let me say this. I know you're in a hurry. One thing I want to do is I want to start training. I want to start teaching, training for the next sheriff to come when I step down. There's going to be somebody ready to step right in that can run that department. It's going to be professional and show all those skills. I want to start training that guy or gal.
Fair enough. We already touched on this, so I'll ask it real quick again, just out of fairness to that. What types of experiences have you prepared for managing the fiscal side of the office? You went over that a little bit. I guess just boil it down maybe to the main point when we talk about just that fiscal side that you think makes you qualify for the job.
Say the first part of that question again.
What types of experiences have you prepared for managing the fiscal side of the office?
I've like you said, I've already said it. My day-to-day operation, we look at our budget. We should not look at our budget at the end of the year and say, "Wow, we blew it. We went over." It's a daily. You go look at it daily. You have people in place. I have, as opposed to, I think right now he just has one person that manages the budget. It's a female clerical worker, and she probably says, we can't buy this, we can buy this, and then he either buys it anyway or don't buy it. And what I would do is get more people involved. Your leaders need to be involved. Your captains of each division needs to know, this is what you have for your division to spend. This is what we budgeted for your division. And you need to know, as we go through monthly, we should be talking about the budget. Where are we at? You overspent this month. It's a lot easier to say you overspent by $2,000 this month than saying in 6 months or a year you overspent by $500,000 or you overspent by $200,000.
And that's experience that you're saying that you would bring from Covington. That's how it's done in Covington.
That's
So
correct.
that's one of the experiences you would bring there.
That's correct.
Okay. We already covered. I don't want to have you belabor the point anymore on that one. The last question he had, we touched on it briefly. A major component of the job of sheriff is jail oversight. How has your previous job experience prepared you to take on that responsibility?
Management, leadership. I said about Ezell Brown, prior to 4 years ago when Ezell Brown took office, he had never ran a jail. But when he took office, he learned the aspects of that jail. When you hire a new CEO at General Mills, he don't know how to run the line, but he knows how to manage the people that have been running the line for years. And, you know, I was a jailer. I'm a certified jailer. I'm a certified jailer. When I came on the Covington Police Department in 1985, I was a jailer. I was a detention officer. We used to have a jail. We don't have it no more. They closed it down in like 90 or 91. But my first 2 years, I ran the jail at Covington Police Department.
Did you actually run the jail, or were you just a jailer?
I was a jailer. Yeah, I didn't run the budget side of it and all that, but you know, I know the inner workings of a jail. I've been inside Newton County Jail many times. But it's all on leadership and management. When I come in as sheriff, I'm not going to fire everybody over there. I need those people. Those people work the day-to-day operations, and those people will continue to work the day-to-day operations. And I'm going to get in there, roll my sleeves up, and I'm going to learn that place inside out. I'll know within 6 months, I'll know everything about that place, and I'll run it. You know, every time we start a new job, we've never done it. You know, I don't know what you did before this, but when you came on to Covington News, you had never, you know, maybe had never wrote a story or never, you know, whatever it is you do, Gabe. But
we wonder that also. You know,
but you're good at it now.
It's a good question.
But you're good at it now. Is he good at it, Pat?
He's very good at it. Yes.
And so that's what I'll do to run that jail.
Okay, you know, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this today. And this is, as we said at the beginning, this is an absolutely very important election. Please get out and vote on November 6th, or you can vote ahead of time. There will be another major forum that the Chamber and the Covington News will be sponsoring on October 11th. October
17th.
17th.
Yes.
Gabe and I have had our issues on this. October 17th here at the Career Academy. So we'll have a chance to hear Captain Bradford again. So please get out and vote. Captain Bradford, thanks so much for taking your time and coming out and speak to us. Oh, and you do, and you know what? And please forgive me on that, but we are going to give all the folks we're talking to a couple moments to say what they want to you as the voter. Captain Bradford?
Thank you, Pat.
Yes, sir.
Again, thank you, and Gabe, thank you. I've enjoyed this setting here. But what I would like to say to the voters of Newton County is that I'm committed to providing a protection and a service of excellence and professionalism to every citizen of Newton County. I am the Republican candidate, and I wish we didn't have to have parties. I wish we could just run on our name, but I am for every citizen of Newton County, and I will give each and every one of you 150%. Also, I would like to say that this is a big county, and as I go out and knock on doors and meet people, there's no way I can knock on every door in Newton County. And I wish I could come and talk to every one of you, but this county is so big. We've grown. We have gotten so large. And I wish I could come and spend time with every one of you, but that just cannot happen. So I would ask you, the citizens of Newton County, the voters of Newton County, to please vote for me on November 6th so I can become the next sheriff of Newton County and work for you. Thank you, Pat.